What's up, guys? I just want to introduce a friend of mine, Mick Wilson. He's been a long-standing family friend, and him and his family started a vineyard about, a little over 20 years ago. And since then, their vineyard, Wilson Creek Winery, has done amazingly. And so Mick, being kind of a pastor and a winemaker, is going to give us a really cool message today, just kind of out of John 15. So I'm super excited. Give him a warm Second Sunday welcome. And if you'd like to give to Second Sunday, you can give on our app, or you can text Second Sunday to 77977. And if you're interested in being in huddles, we'll have a new batch of them starting up pretty soon. So just email us at info@secondsundaysd.com. We'd love to plug you in. Hope you're having a great Sunday. And without any further ado, here is Mick Wilson.
Hello, Second Sunday. My name is Mick Wilson, owner of Wilson Creek Winery, and I'm also a pastor for many years. And we've been here at Temecula for about 20 years now. I actually lived up in the Vines for about 10 in a double wide. I graduated from a single wide, so it's fun. I learned a lot about vines, and my favorite chapter is John 15, which I'll share with you today, where Jesus says, "I'm the vine, you're the branches." But one year I actually shared that at Jay's church in La Mesa. And about a year later, one of the young women there came up and visited the winery, and she talked about that image that kind of stuck in her brain. And what it did, it caused her to start digging more into that chapter, and it caused her to start thinking more. And she said, "I saw this, but then after the months, I started to see. I started to get it. I started to understand that this whole Jesus thing is not about him up there, but it's about him in here. It's not about me striving. It's about fruit. It's about him working in and through me." And she just had this beam about her. And she then shows me her ankle, and there's this cross with a grapevine and fruit wrapped around the cross. And she said, I did this because I need to be reminded that I'm good with God. I need to be reminded that I'm cherished. I need to be reminded that I'm chosen. I need to be reminded when I go through tough times that God is in that. And so this whole thing right here has that all there. What I want you guys in Second Sunday to do is I'm going to hop through these pretty quickly, and that your job as a learning community is to take those things and just kind of process that together and dig deeper into some of these things, because there's gold in here. And I'm learning more and more about this the more I dig into it. And what I did, I brought my friend here. This is Vinny. He's a he's a 50-year-old Syrah vine. And we had to pull him up because we had to widen the road. So on this side shows what Vinny looks like in the summer during harvest. This is August. And on this side, after the leaf drop in the fall, when it turns all the beautiful colors, this side actually is what it looks like in the winter when we get ready for pruning. So I kind of have a schizophrenic vine here to show you the before and after. This is, of course, Silk Leaves via Michael's here. But Vinny helps, for me, this story come alive. Because the story, to get the big picture, to zoom out, it starts in the garden. And as we know in the Bible, it's a united story that leads to Jesus. And the story starts in paradise, and it starts with humanity walking with God, in harmony with God. There's life there. And in the middle of the garden is the tree of life. And this tree of life is where God's presence and power, and for humanity to be able to access and eat that fruit and partake of the divine, and then take that. And the idea is to be image bearers and to reproduce that into the world. So the whole garden imagery is about experiencing life and then replicating that life. But you know how it went quickly, right away, this downward spiral where humanity chose to define good and evil on their own terms. They went their own direction, and just story after story of this downward spiral. But at the same time, God promised, one will come who will be the wounded victor. One will come that will somehow restore access back to this and somehow defeat evil. And through the whole epic story of the Hebrew scriptures, you see person after person, is it them, is it them, is it them? And then the nation of Israel through Abraham starts, and Israel is called the vine. And the prophets start roaring against Israel and saying, you're a vine. Yes, you're supposed to reproduce fruit throughout the world, but no, you bore sour grapes. You become a wild vine out of control. And Israel failed in their job as image bearers. So the Hebrew scriptures are left hanging with this hope that someone will come that will somehow restore all that. Well, launching way ahead, John chapter 14, Jesus on the night that he's betrayed, he's in Jerusalem within the city walls, the Last Supper, and he's telling his disciples that he is the access back. I am the way. I am the truth and the life. And then he says, what I've been doing, you're going to be doing even greater things because I'm sending my very personal presence, my spirit, who's going to do this in and through you. And then they leave and they get out and they walk outside the gates and they go down this hill where the big gates, the big walls of Jerusalem are in the background with the temple kind of overbearing it right there. They go through this valley called the Valley of Kidron all the way up to the Garden of Gethsemane. But right in this valley, back then were vineyards. And Jesus stops and he takes time and he points to this vine. And he basically says, the tree of life, remember, is now here. And I'm going to reproduce what I've been doing through you because you will all bear fruit. And let me read. It says this, I am the grapevine and my Father is the gardener. Better word would be vineyard manager. He cuts off every branch of mine that doesn't produce fruit. And he prunes the branches that do bear fruit, so they will produce even more. You have already been pruned and purified by the message I have given you. Remain in me, and I will remain in you. For a branch cannot produce fruit if it is severed from the vine, and you cannot be fruitful unless you remain in me. Yes, I'm the vine. You are the branches. Those who remain in me and I in them will produce much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. Anyone who does not remain in me is thrown away like a useless branch and withers. Such branches are gathered into a pile to be burned. But if you remain in me and my words remain in you, you may ask anything you want and it will be granted. This brings great glory to my Father. I've told you these things that you'll be filled with joy. You didn't choose me, but I chose you. I appointed you to go and produce lasting fruit so that the Father will give whatever you ask for using my name. This is my commandment. Love each other in the same way I've loved you. There is no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friends. And then John chapter 16, he says, I've told you all this and all these things so that you will not fall away or abandon your faith. Pretty intense. What Jesus was pointing out is there's 3 different branches here. 2 of them are healthy. One is healthy, and 2, he says to his disciples, these will be tendencies in your life, and I don't want you to go there. I don't want you to be these other 2 branches. He's promising them life, but he's also warning them it could be easy to go these other ways. The first branch is actually the withered one. And this one I actually took this grapevine right here and I cut this off about 2 hours ago, this branch. And he says, if you don't connect with me, with the source of life, you will eventually, over time, wither. And because there's no life, you will dry out, you will burn out. And this kind of branch is useless because eventually what's going to happen, the branch will look like this. And he said, all this is used for, he's not talking about burning in hell or anything like this. All this is good for is kindling, is firewood. What we use these things for now, people gather them up and we make wreaths. He's saying, if you do not abide in me, meaning you do not remain in me, stay in my love, connect with who I am, draw your life and love from me, then you're just going to be as useful as maybe a wreath. That's about it. And the tendency is to disconnect from that life and try to go find something else and try to go find life elsewhere. What's interesting about these branches, imagine if you're this disconnected branch. You have to find life somewhere. You have to find a vine. You got to go somewhere. And so these branches can connect with something somewhere looking around for life, connecting to good things that can become vines that will eventually kind of enslave you and master you. Paul talks a lot about that. But looking for approval and affirmation and things that you look to for life, but it end up making you even more withered and more dried up. Jesus is saying, I'm the source of life. You try to find life in all these other things, it's not going to work. It won't happen. You have to stay vitally connected because if not, you're going to get dry and barren. I meet a lot of people who are, I ask them, what comes to your mind when you think about God? Well, I used to, but now. And when I ask them, well, what did you used to? What was it that made you disconnect? And well, they describe this, but they don't want to go back because they didn't like where they left from. And they describe a God who is this petulant, angry God that's out to get them, and they have to somehow appease the God, which leads to branch number 2 here. And that one, it's hard to see. It's the sucker branch. He said, I don't want you to be a branch that doesn't bear fruit. Now keep in mind, he's doing this in the spring. In spring, we do what's called shoot thinning. We go through and we actually remove sucker branches, because these are the branches that don't have the tiny little grapes in it that will eventually produce fruit. And if you don't pull these out, these will actually take and draw energy from the other branches. They actually are hurtful for the branches. So Jesus is saying there's a type of person, a type of relationship with the divine that you're looking good externally, but there is no love. And I think he gives a hint to what the sucker branch is when he said, you have to abide in my love, because if not, you're not going to produce fruit, because it'll get caught up in religion. You're going to get caught up in what I refer to as the if-then. If I do these things, then God will bless me. And it ends up going 2 roads. Either I'm just tired of all this, I'm going to chuck it all, I'm tired of being a poser and trying to pretend to be on the outside what I'm really not on the inside. Or you get the opposite. You get someone that says, I'm pulling this off. I'm doing good, and you're not, and you're not, and you're not, and I am. And you get this pride, you get this super self-righteousness, and that is just so draining. Suckers are draining. And people that don't have the love of Christ in them and aren't remaining them can be draining. Religiosity, religious people sometimes, and I see this in the little sucker in my life, you start going that route and you have to get love from people. No longer are you giving out of overflow, you have to get love. So actually went out today and popped out a sucker. This is an actual sucker. And you can tell what's not on here are the little buds, the little fruit grapes. They're not here. So Jesus, don't be a withered vine. Don't be a sucker. Be this. He talks about the fruitful vine. And he said, if you want to be a fruitful vine, you want to bear fruit, there's 2 things you need to know. He said, I'm the vine, you are the branches. My Father is the vineyard manager. This is critical. In all of chapter 16, the first part, he warns his disciples, you will go through hardships. You're going to go through tough times. And what I think he's telling them is when you go through these tough times, understand that my Father will use these times like a vineyard manager uses pruning shears. Will bring the loss, will bring hardship, will bring an elimination, will bring reduction in order to bring life. And he's telling them, when you go through these things, know that God is going to use them to produce new life in you. So when he says, my Father is the vineyard manager, the term vineyard manager is powerful because the vineyard manager, when he or she looks at a vine, remember, this is the winter pruning here. There's 2 prunings, the sucker pruning in the spring and then the winter pruning. So he said the winter pruning is going to be coming. Persecution is going to happen. You will go through tough times. But know that when this happens, the Father will use the difficult times to shape you, to make you actually more loving, to take the fruitful branches and make more fruit. Unless we cut these back, these are going to be this wild vine and the fruit will be dissipated. We can't use it. So what the vineyard manager will do, they say, okay, this one I'm going to keep 2 spurs. This one I'm going to keep 1 spur. This one I want to bring all the way back because I want more energy going here. He or she will look at this thing and envision 10 years down the road what this vine will look like, how they're going to shape it. Matter of fact, you can see right here, this has been probably 15 prunings to get to this nub right there. And so when you prune back, the vine does not like this. And if I could talk to the vine, I would say, trust me, I know what I'm doing. You don't see it right now, but life will come out of death. I think we know another situation where life came out of death. So when tough times happen, is God causing it? Is God allowing it? I don't know. I just know he uses it to shape and to bring future life. So the encouragement to these branches are don't run, abide, stay. Don't go back to the old religious system. You're going to be a sucker. Don't disconnect. You're going to wither. These other vines don't work. You will be pruned. And here's my encouragement is to look back on your life when something came in, when the blade came into your life and something was cut off, a loss or something happened where there's something was good, but then it's whacked. And you look back and over time, I think about 3 months until we're going to get bud break here, over time, all of a sudden something new happened, right? And you look back, you kind of go, oh, life out of death, something new out of the elimination of something old that was good, but now there's something better that happened. Or you look forward to people who are old sages, and you ask them, how did you get this wisdom and this love? And you'll hear the same answer, hardships. And there's a saying, the same sun, S-U-N, that melts wax, hardens clay. You will either be shaped and get better, or you will get bitter. Because religion basically says, I'm doing good, God, you're not coming through. Or religion says, I'm not doing enough, I'm being punished. And Jesus says another thing you got to look at, he said, you've already been pruned. And the term here on the pruned, the term is cleaned. He said, I've already gone through and I've already I de-suckered you guys already. I've taken the religion out of you with the message I've given you. But the term clean is temple language. Keep in mind, these vineyards were at the base of the wall in this massive temple. What happened in the temple? That's where you had to go through purification and get cleansed and jump through hoops in order to be accepted by the divine. You had to go through various courtyards. That's where sacrifice happened in order for forgiveness. That's where heaven and on earth came together. That was the hot spot of God, that temple. And Jesus said something absolutely crazy. He said, I've already made you clean. What happens in that temple is now happening through me here, right now. That kind of language is going to get you killed. And he said, elsewhere, he said, I'm creating a new temple of living stones. I'm creating a new humanity, Jew and Gentile together, a new movement. I'm the vine and you're the branches. And you are the ones that will carry this movement and reproduce it. So the biggest thing I can tell people is when you're going through tough times, and Jesus is telling his disciples are going to happen, God is on it, but you're good with God. Eliminate from your mind the idea that somehow I'm being punished, because that's a default. I was diagnosed a decade ago with cancer, with prostate cancer. Of course, you start spinning. You got, what did I do wrong? Am I this? I didn't do enough of this. And you go through that whole religious sucker theology. And you get to a point where you come to a point where you go, I don't know what's going on, but God, shape me in this. Make me more compassionate, more empathetic. Someone comes to me now and they mention the C word, cancer. I'm there. I'm like, tell me your story. I wasn't like that before. I think the pruning actually caused more love. This is no fun. But future life will come from here, from that bud, from that bud, from that bud, from that bud. And another thing he says here, we like to look at this, and I've heard this talked about, where I just need to connect with Jesus, me and Jesus. I'm the vine, you are a branch. The Greek here in you is the Texas y'all. I'm the vine, y'all the branches. We Westerners think of me and Jesus, me and God. It's you all. He's saying you all collectively are the branches. You all collectively, second Sunday collectively will be bearing fruit. Collectively, you may go through pruning and something will happen to where, what the heck's going on? You remind yourselves, we're good with God and new life is going to come out of this somehow. Y'all is important because if not, you hunker down into your own little world, and that's an easy way to become a sucker. The other thing I think is fantastic is he says later in John 17 in his high priestly prayer, Jesus said, He said, they will know you are my followers, you will know that you are my apprentices by your love for one another, by your unity for one another, as you lay yourselves down and sacrifice for one another. Jesus in John 15 says, love one another as I have loved you. No greater love than this, and one lay his or her life down for their friends. And he's challenging the community, be like that. So with the unity thing, what's interesting is this branch that was cut off can actually, you put a little slice in this trunk where all the sap comes, all the life comes, and you take these little buds and you actually put that in there, and it's called grafting. And what happens is future life starts coming into this withered, dead vine. And this is a Syrah vine, but let's say I take Chardonnay, which is a white grape, I take Sangiovese, a red grape, and I put those all in here, all this diversity of grapes. You're gonna have a crazy multi-personality vine, but it'll be a pretty cool red blend or a pretty cool wine blend. I think Jesus is saying that's kind of what the church is. He said, you did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed y'all in your unity to go bear fruit. So the y'all is all these branches that he's taken individually and grafted in, and together are gonna show off who he is. Because we're invited into this triune dance of the Father and the Son and the Spirit. Jesus says, the Father is in me and I'm in the Father and you're in me and the Father is gonna make his home in you. I can't wrap my head around it. But the idea is phenomenal. This whole divine relational dance happening, he's saying when you plug into that, you abide in that, you remain in that, you stay with that, fruit will happen. And collectively, that fruit will be unity. Collectively, that fruit is going to be sacrificing for one another. That's powerful. That back in the garden, that tree of life is now his new temple, his vine, his branches that will produce fruit. That's the church. It's not an event. It's not going to something. This is where now heaven and earth are coming together in the church. This is now the hot spot of God. This is now the new temple. That's phenomenal. And I want to leave you with this here. This is something from your website I thought was really cool. I love how you describe this because it brings up this garden imagery. It says this. It says, I actually turned it into a prayer. I pray that you, second Sunday, continue to be unlocked by divine love. Then love one another well, together all caught up in God's beautiful plan to restore garden realities to earth. Being the branches, bringing heaven to earth, no matter what happens, abiding in the vine, and fruit will happen, supernatural life. That's a kind of movement I want to be part of. Not a sucker, not a withered branch. That can happen, and that can happen in our lives. We got to watch each other to make sure that doesn't happen, that we get off track. But encouraging one another, stay with him, stay with that love, because if not, these other things look real attractive and it will cause withering. Anyway, thanks for coming to Wilson Creek. Thanks for meeting Vinny. And I encourage you, as you dig into the John 15, come up here, do some wine tasting, and share some things that you're learning. You don't have to get a tattoo, but some things that you're seeing and how it impacts you, because this right here, to me, is the essence of what it means to be united with the divine and what it doesn't mean. Powerful, powerful stuff. He was cut off, so we would only be cut back. That's good news. Thank you.
Shattered to pieces, I'm holding your eyes. You hold me together when I lose my mind. there's a very explicit challenge in this song to leave everything behind us and to give everything to the construction of what God's calling us to do. To stop choosing things that are beneath us and to go after the things that God has planned for us. And it doesn't say that it's easy. In fact, biblically, it often involves something that feels like death or looks like death. But all the while, we have each other, and we have God, and we have this certainty that we're choosing the good, we're choosing the new, we're choosing purpose, future, and life. So as we sing this bridge, let it be not only a declaration, but an affirmation. Not just this moment, but for the rest of my life. Heart and soul, I'm choosing you. There is no question, I've made up my mind. Heart and soul, choosing you, not just this moment, but for the rest of my life. Heart and soul, I'm choosing you. There is no question, I've made up my mind. Heart and soul, I'm so done with chasing the small dreams, and I'm not bringing back all the dead things. I'm not going back to the old me. I'm choosing you. I'm choosing you. You go before I know that you've even gone to win my war. Your love becomes my greatest defense. It brings me from the dry wilderness, and all I did was praise. Did was worship, and all I did was bow down, and all I did was stay still. Hallelujah, you have saved me. So much better your way, and hallelujah, great defender. So much better this way. You go before I do, where my heart can see to find your truth.